Ava went to the pub to drown her desperation. 3 whiskeys in, she fell, right into the lap of a handsome stranger who'd been watching her all night. She didn't know he was hunting her too. The fall happened so fast Ava didn't even have time to scream. One moment she was navigating the crowded pub with whiskey warming her blood, and her mind blissfully numb for the first time in weeks. The next, her boot hit a slick patch on the floor. Someone spilled ale, probably, and the world tilted violently sideways. She grabbed for the nearest table, but her fingers found only smoke-hazed air. The floor rushed up to meet her. And then, impact. But not the bone-crushing kind she'd braced for. She landed hard against something solid and warm that definitely wasn't the floor. Strong hands caught her waist with reflexes too fast to be entirely human, and suddenly she was sprawled across someone's lap, her face buried against a linen shirt that smelled like winter pine and leather and something darker she couldn't name. "Well?" A voice rumbled above her, low and edged with amusement. "This is new." Ava's whiskey-fogged brain stuttered. She pushed herself up slightly, her palms flat against a chest that was extremely well-muscled beneath that deceptively simple shirt. When she looked up, her breath caught. The man whose lap she'd crashed into was devastating. Sharp cheekbones and a jaw that could cut glass, dark hair falling just past his collar, and a mouth that curved in a way that suggested he knew exactly how attractive he was. But it was his eyes that made her stomach flip. Pale amber, almost molten gold in the firelight, and currently fixed on her with an intensity that burned through her whiskey haze like a torch through fog. "Are you comfortable?" he asked, and there was definitely amusement threading through his voice now. "Because you're welcome to stay here as long as you need. I'm certainly not complaining about the view." Heat flooded Ava's face. She tried to scramble off him, acutely aware that her skirts were hiked up past her knees, and her hand was still pressed against his chest, and half the pub was probably staring. But his hands tightened on her waist, firmly enough to keep her exactly where she was. "Easy," he said. "You hit your head on the way down. Let's make sure you're not about to pass out before you go stumbling off again." "I didn't stumble," Ava protested, though her tongue felt thick. "I slipped." "There's a difference. So the 3 whiskeys I watched you drink had nothing to do with it?" Her eyes narrowed. "You were watching me?" "Hard not to." His thumb traced an idle circle against her hip, and she felt it like a brand through the thin fabric of her dress. "You walked in looking like you wanted to burn the world down, ordered whiskey like it was water, and haven't stopped glaring at that letter in your pocket since you sat down." His head tilted slightly. "So yes, I was watching. You're significantly more interesting than anything else in this place." Ava's heart kicked against her ribs. She should definitely get off this stranger's lap immediately. Instead, she heard herself say, "That's a bit creepy." His mouth curved wider. "Is it? I thought it was attentive. Same thing from the wrong person." "Am I the wrong person?" he asked. "I don't know yet." The whiskey was making her bold, reckless. "I don't even know your name." "Henry," he said, and something flickered in those amber eyes, too quick to read. "And you are?" "Ava. Ava?" He said it slowly, like he was tasting it. "Beautiful name. Though I have to say, your entrance was far more memorable than any introduction." His hands were still on her waist, warm and steady and completely improper. "Do you always make such dramatic first impressions, or am I special?" "You're not special." But her voice came out breathier than she'd intended, and from the way his smile sharpened, he'd noticed. "Liar." His thumb traced that maddening circle again. "Your pulse is racing. I can feel it. That's because I just fell and hit my head." Before we continue, please take 2 seconds to like this video. It tells me you want more stories like this. He leaned in slightly, close enough that she could see the darker gold flecks in his eyes. "Or is it because you're sprawled across a stranger's lap and part of you doesn't actually want to move?" Ava's mouth went dry. She should be mortified, but there was something about the way he looked at her, like he could see straight through her whiskey-soaked bravado to the raw hurt underneath. That gave her pause. "You're very sure of yourself," she managed. "Only when I'm right." His voice dropped lower, intimate. "Now, are you going to answer my question, or are we going to keep dancing around it?" "What question?" "Are you comfortable, Ava?" His voice sent heat curling through her belly. This was dangerous. He was dangerous, from the coiled strength in his body to the way those amber eyes tracked her every breath. But Ava had spent the last 3 months playing it safe, being careful, doing everything right. And where had that gotten her? Alone in a pub, drinking away the memory of a letter that had shattered what was left of her carefully constructed life. "Your lap," she said, meeting his eyes, "is surprisingly comfortable. But you already knew that, didn't you?" His smile turned sharp, pleased. "I had a feeling. Wow, modest too. Modesty is overrated." His thumbs traced those maddening circles against her hips again. Ava tried to move, but the pub's threads were a chaotic tangle around them, frayed cords of desperation, lust, betrayal, knotting together in her peripheral vision like a bramble hedge. They made her head pound, made her want to close her eyes and sink into the darkness behind her lids. Except for one thread, one singular radiant cord that stretched between her chest and his, pulsing with colors she'd never seen before. Gold, shot through with crimson and violet, and something that looked almost like starlight. It was beautiful, alive, and it terrified her. She yanked her gaze away from it, forcing herself to focus on his face instead. "I really do need to get up." His hands released her waist. "If you insist." Ava pushed herself upright, but immediately regretted it as the room tilted. Her stomach lurched and she grabbed for the table, but Henry was already there, one hand steadying her elbow, while the other pressed gently against the small of her back. "Easy," he murmured, close enough that she felt his breath against her temple. "You definitely hit your head harder than you think. I'm fine." But her voice lacked conviction, and from the way his mouth curved, he heard it too. He guided her back down onto the booth's bench, beside him this time instead of on top of him, though the loss of contact made that strange thread between them pull taut, almost aching. "Stay put for a moment, Ava. Let me see." Before she could protest, his fingers were in her hair, gently probing the tender spot above her hairline. His touch was surprisingly careful, almost clinical, but it sent heat racing down her spine anyway. "Small cut," he said after a moment. "Already stopped bleeding. But you're going to have a nasty bruise." His hand lingered, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with surprising tenderness. "How much have you had to drink?" "Not enough. To forget whatever's in that letter you keep touching?" His amber eyes dropped to her pocket, where her fingers had unconsciously found the folded parchment. Or to make the forgetting easier? Ava's throat closed. She pulled her hand away from her pocket like it had burned her. "That's none of your business." "No, it's not," he agreed quietly. But he didn't look away, and that thread between them pulsed brighter, like it was trying to tell her something she wasn't ready to hear. The barmaid, Marin, her name tag read, appeared at their table with a damp cloth and a glass of water. "Saw you take that tumble, honey. You all right?" Her eyes cut to Henry with undisguised suspicion. "Is this man bothering you?" "No," Ava said quickly. "I just slipped. He caught me." Marin didn't look convinced, but she set down the cloth and water anyway. "Well, you drink that, and maybe consider heading home before you do yourself real damage." She shot Henry one more warning look before stalking back to the bar. Henry picked up the cloth, dipped it in the water glass, and wrung it out with practiced efficiency. Then he reached for Ava's face. She caught his wrist. "What are you doing?" cleaning the blood from your hairline. Unless you'd prefer to do it yourself? Fine, she muttered, releasing his wrist. His smile was soft, almost fond, as he lifted the cloth to her temple. The cool water stung slightly, but his other hand cupped her jaw, steadying her, and the intimacy of the gesture made her breath hitch. "You're very good at this," she said, needing to fill the silence. "Taking care of drunk women who fall into your lap. Do you make a habit of it? You're the first, actually." He dabbed carefully at her hairline, his touch feather-light. "Though I have to say, if all drunk women were this entertaining, I might consider it." "Entertaining? You're prickly. I like it." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. He pulled the cloth away, studying his work. "There. Good as new. Well, mostly." His gaze dropped to hers, and the heat in it made her stomach flip. "Though I have to say, the disheveled look suits you." Ava's face flamed. "You're terrible at this." "At what?" "Flirting. You're supposed to be subtle." "Why would I be subtle when directness is so much more effective?" He set down the cloth, but his hand remained on her jaw, his thumb still tracing that maddening line along her cheekbone. "Besides, you're blushing." "I'd say it's working. That's the whiskey talking." He leaned in slightly, and that thread between them blazed so bright it hurt to look at. "Are you sure you're not thinking about kissing me right now?" Ava's heart slammed against her ribs. She unfortunately was thinking about that, had been since the moment she'd looked up and seen his face, but admitting it felt dangerous, like stepping off a cliff with no idea what waited below. "You're very presumptuous," she said. His eyes dropped to her mouth, then back up. "Am I right, Ava?" "Yes," she whispered, the word escaping before she could stop it. "You're right." His smile turned wicked right before he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative or careful or any of the things a first kiss was supposed to be. It was claiming, possessive, his mouth slanting over hers with a hunger that stole her breath. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back to deepen the kiss, and she opened for him with a soft sound she'd be embarrassed about later. He tasted like whiskey and something darker, something that made her head spin. His other hand found her waist, pulled her closer, and she went willingly, her fingers fisting in his shirt like she could anchor herself to him. The thread between them exploded into light, brilliant gold, crimson, and violet all tangled together, pulsing in time with her racing heart. It was overwhelming, beautiful, yet terrifying. When they finally broke apart, Ava tried to remember how to form words. "That was much better than I imagined," Henry said roughly, his hands still tangled in her hair. "You imagined it?" "Since the moment you landed in my lap." His thumb traced the nape of her neck, sending shivers down her spine. Ava pulled back to look at him. His pupils were blown wide, his breathing uneven, and there was a flush high on his cheekbones that made him look younger, less controlled. "Have dinner with me. Tomorrow night? Let me be more than some charming stranger who kissed you in a pub." Every self-preservation instinct Ava possessed hissed at her to say no, to walk away before she got hurt, before that thread between them, pulled so tight it strangled her. But the whiskey and his kiss and the way he looked at her made her reckless. "One dinner," she heard herself say, "and then we'll see." His smile was brilliant, transforming his sharp features into something almost boyish. "I'll take it." He stood, offering his hand. "Come on, I'm walking you home." "That's not necessary." "Ava." His voice was gentle but firm. "You're drunk. You hit your head, and it's past midnight in Greyhold. I'm walking you home. On most other nights, she would have insisted on stumbling home on her own, but the pub's threads were still a tangled mess that made her skull ache, and the thought of navigating dark streets alone made her stomach twist. "Okay," she said, taking his hand. "But if you try anything, I know exactly where you keep that knife in your boot." His smile turned wicked. I've been watching you adjust it all night. Trust me, Ava, when I try anything, you'll be very aware it's happening. Heat flooded her face as he pulled her to her feet, steadying her when she swayed. Then he tucked her hand into the crook of his elbow, grabbed the letter she'd left on the table. She tried to snatch it back, but he'd already pocketed it and guided her toward the door. The night air hit her like a slap, cold and sharp enough to cut through some of the whiskey fog. Ava breathed deep, trying to clear her head, but that thread between them pulsed brighter in the darkness, impossible to ignore. "Which way?" Henry asked, scanning the empty street with an intensity that seemed excessive for a simple walk home. "East, near the printmaker's district." She glanced up at him. "You really don't have to do this. I've walked these streets drunk before. That doesn't make me feel better about letting you do it again." His hand covered hers where it rested in the crook of his elbow, warm and solid. "Humor me." They walked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, their footsteps echoing off cobblestones. The threads here were thinner, less chaotic. Ava let herself relax slightly, the pounding in her head easing to a dull throb. "Can I ask you something?" Henry said quietly. "You can ask. Doesn't mean I'll answer." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "The letter in your pocket. Bad news?" Ava's chest tightened. "My sister," she said softly. "She's been taken. Crown Forces, for questioning about illegal magic use." Her voice cracked slightly. "She's 16, barely knows how to light a candle with her gift, and they took her like she's some kind of threat." Henry went very still beside her. "When?" "4 days ago." "The letter arrived this afternoon from my aunt." Ava blinked hard against the burning in her eyes. "It's why I was drinking, trying to figure out what to do, how to help her, but I don't—" Her voice broke. "I don't have the money for a lawyer, don't have connections to anyone who could intervene. I'm just a bookbinder. I can't—" "Hey." Henry stopped walking, turning to face her. His hands came up to frame her face, and the gentleness in the gesture made her eyes sting worse. "Look at me." She did, reluctantly. "What's your sister's name?" "Neve." "Why? And where is she being held?" "I don't know. The letter didn't say." Suspicion crept into her voice. "Why are you asking?" Henry was quiet for a long moment, his amber eyes searching her face. Then he said quietly, "I might be able to help." Ava pulled back from his touch. "How?" "You're a—" She gestured vaguely at him. "A merchant? What would you do against Crown Forces?" "More than you'd think." His voice was careful, measured. "I have connections. People who owe me favors. If you'll let me, I can make inquiries, find out where your sister is being held, what the charges are." "Really? Why would you do that?" Ava's voice was hope laced with suspicion. "Because you need help." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "And because I—" He stopped, something flickering across his face. "Because I can." That should be enough. But it didn't make sense to Ava. Strangers didn't just appear and offer to solve your problems. They usually wanted something in return. "What's the price?" Ava asked tentatively. Henry's jaw tightened. "Nothing." She took a step back, and the thread between them pulled taut, almost painful. "Everyone wants something. So, what is it? Information? Access to someone? Or is it simpler than that? You help me, I'm grateful, and gratitude leads to—" "Ava." His voice was sharp. "Don't cheapen this. Don't cheapen yourself." "Well, tell me the truth," Ava shot back. "Why are you really offering to help?" He stared at her for a long moment, something dangerous and raw moving behind his eyes. Then he said quietly, "Because the world is full of people who take and take until there's nothing left. And I'm tired of being one of them." He took a step toward her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "So, maybe I'm offering because I want to do something good for once, I want to help you without expecting anything in return. Is that so hard to believe? Yes, Ava wanted to say. In her experience, it was impossible to believe, but the thread between them pulsed with colors she'd never associated with lies. Brilliant gold and steady blue, the shades of loyalty and truth. And when she looked at his face, all she saw was sincerity. One dinner, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. You help me find Neve, and I'll have dinner with you. That's the deal. He studied her for another moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but just so we're clear, I'm helping you because I want to. The dinner is just a convenient excuse to see you again. Despite everything, Ava felt her mouth curve. You're impossible. So I've been told. He offered his arm again. Come on, let's get you home before you freeze. They walked the rest of the way in silence, but it felt different now, charged with possibility and the weight of promises made. When they reached her building, a narrow townhouse wedged between a printmaker's shop and a tailor, Ava stopped at the door. This is me. Henry looked up at the building, his expression unreadable. Top floor? How did you... The window with the lamp still burning. He nodded toward it. You left it on, expecting to come home late? Or not at all, Ava admitted. Some nights the whiskey wins. Something pained crossed his face, but he didn't comment. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a card, thick parchment with elegant script. My address. Send word there tomorrow afternoon, and I'll have information about your sister. Ava took the card, squinting at it in the dim light. The address was in the Upper District, the expensive part of town where merchants and minor nobility kept townhouses. Her stomach churned. You're rich. Comfortable, he corrected, but there was something evasive in his tone. She looked up at him, trying to read his expression, but the darkness hid too much. Who are you really, Henry? Someone who wants to help. Reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. That's all you need to know for now. But that's not all, is it? The threads radiating from him were impossible to count in the darkness, stretching in every direction like a spider's web. She'd never seen anything like it. You're hiding something. We all have secrets, Ava. His thumb brushed her cheekbone one last time before he stepped back. The question is whether it matters. She wanted to press, but exhaustion was creeping in and her head throbbed. Tomorrow, she said instead. I'll send word. I'll be waiting. He smiled, and even in the darkness it was devastating. Sleep well, Ava. Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the night. Ava watched until he disappeared around the corner, that golden thread still stretching between them. She climbed the stairs to her apartment in a daze, her mind spinning. The kiss, the offer, the way he'd looked at her, the way his threads had spread across the city like a net. Ava collapsed onto her bed without bothering to undress, staring at the ceiling as the room spun slowly. She knew to be suspicious of beautiful strangers with mysterious connections and silver tongues. But all she could think about was the way his hands had felt in her hair, and the promise in his voice when he'd said he'd help her. The card Henry had given her led to a townhouse that made Ava's stomach drop. 3 stories of pale stone with leaded glass windows and wrought iron balconies. It whispered wealth in a way that made her plain wool dress feel like rags. She almost turned around. But Neve was out there somewhere, scared and alone, and Ava would swallow her pride and walk through hell itself if it meant getting her sister back. The door opened before she could knock. A man stood there, mid-40s, built like a brick wall, with silver threading through his dark hair. His eyes swept over her with professional assessment, and Ava saw threads radiating from him in military precise lines. A soldier then, or had been. Miss Ava? His voice was gravel rough but kind. Yes, I'm here to see. He's expecting you. The man stepped aside. This way. Ava followed him through a foyer that was somehow both elegant and understated. Dark wood floors, cream-colored walls, artwork that looked expensive but not ostentatious. The threads here were different from the pub's chaos. Organized, disciplined, all of them leading deeper into the house, all of them leading to Henry. The soldier knocked on a closed door. "Sir, your guest is here. Send her in." Ava's stomach flipped at the sound of Henry's voice. The soldier opened the door, gestured her through, then closed it behind her with a soft click. The room was clearly a study. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk covered in papers, windows overlooking a small private garden. And standing by those windows, backlit by afternoon sun, was Henry. He wore different clothes today, still plain but better quality. Dark trousers, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, a vest that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. He looked like money trying not to look like money. Ava? Her name was warm in his mouth, intimate. "I'm glad you came. You said you'd have information." She forced herself to stay near the door, to keep distance between them, even as that thread pulled tight. "About Neve?" "I do." He moved to his desk, shuffled through papers, then pulled out a document. "Your sister is being held at Thornhaven, a detention facility 2 days' ride north of here. She's being questioned about possible connections to an underground network of magic users." Ava's blood ran cold. "What network?" "Neve doesn't know anyone like that." "I know." Henry's voice was gentle. "The charges are fabricated. Someone wanted her taken, wanted leverage. Leverage for what? That's complicated, then uncomplicated." Henry set down the document, leaning back against his desk. "There's a man. Lord Regent Silas of the Southern Territories. He's been orchestrating raids on villages, taking people with rare magical gifts. Some he recruits willingly, others he coerces through hostages, family members held at facilities like Thornhaven." Ava's stomach turned. "He's building an army?" "Yes. But what does this have to do with Neve? She can barely light a candle." "It's not about what she can do." Henry pushed off the desk, moving closer. "It's about what you can do." Ava took a step back, her hand instinctively going to the knife in her boot. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." He didn't sound accusatory, just certain. "You have thread sight. You can see connections between people, loyalty, betrayal, love, obligation. It's rare, valuable." His eyes held hers. "Silas has been hunting for someone with your gift for months. Somehow, he found out about you, took your sister to draw you out. How do you know about—" her voice cracked. "How do you know what I can do? Because I've been looking for you too." Henry said it quietly, like a confession. "For different reasons. Better reasons. But Ava, if Silas gets his hands on you, he'll use you to map loyalties across the entire kingdom. He'll know exactly who to target, who to turn, who to eliminate. You'd be the perfect weapon." Ava's legs felt weak. She grabbed for the door handle, needing something solid to hold on to. "You've been tracking me. This whole time, the pub, the kiss, the offer to help, it was all just—" "No." Henry crossed the distance between them, his hands coming up to frame her face. "Listen, I knew who you were when you walked into that pub. I'd been tracking rumors of thread sight for weeks, and they all led to Greyhold. But Ava—" His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and the tenderness in the gesture made her eyes burn. "I didn't know it would be you. Didn't know you'd be—" He stopped, something raw crossing his face. "I didn't know about the bond." That golden thread between them pulsed, almost painful in its intensity. "What bond?" Ava whispered, even though she already knew. Henry's voice was rough. "You've seen it. That thread connecting us. It's not like the others, is it? It's a mate bond." I felt it the moment you landed in my lap. And unless I'm very wrong, you felt it too. Ava wanted to deny it, but the thread was right there between them, more vivid than anything she'd ever seen. I don't want it, she said, her voice breaking. I don't want any of this. Pain flashed across Henry's face, but he didn't let go. I understand. And if I could change it, if I could give you a choice. He stopped, swallowed hard. But the bond is real, Ava, and Silas knows about you. That's why he took Neve, to force you into the open, to make you desperate enough to use your gift publicly. Then I won't. She pulled away from his touch, wrapped her arms around herself. I'll disappear. He can't use Neve as leverage if he can't find me. He'll kill her. Henry's voice was certain. The moment he realizes you're not coming, he'll execute her and move on to the next target. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Something dangerous flickered behind his eyes, because that's exactly what he did to the last family who refused to cooperate. The room spun. Ava pressed her back against the door, needing its solidity to keep from collapsing. What do you want from me? Help me stop him. Henry moved closer, but didn't touch her, giving her space even as that thread pulled tight between them. I need your thread sight to identify his network, who in the kingdom is working with him, who he's coerced, where his real power lies. Without that information, I'm fighting blind. But with it, his hands flexed at his sides. With it, I can dismantle his operation, free the hostages, stop him before he tears this kingdom apart. What about my sister? I'll get her out. The moment we move against Silas, I'll send people to Thornhaven. She'll be safe. Ava's laugh came out shaky, uncertain. You keep making these big promises. Who are you, Henry? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, someone who can help you. Someone who wants to help you. Does anything else matter? Yes, Ava snapped, because I'm tired of being lied to. Tired of beautiful words from beautiful men who think they can manipulate me into doing what they want. She pushed off the door, stalked toward him. So tell me the truth. Who are you? Why do you really care about stopping Silas? Something shifted in Henry's expression. Resignation, maybe. Or relief that the game was finally over. My real name is Heath, he said quietly. Heath Voltaire. I'm the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. He paused, letting that sink in. And Silas is my cousin. Ava grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. The Alpha King. She'd been kissing the Alpha King in a pub, had fallen into his lap, drunk and vulnerable, while he'd been, what? Assessing her? Testing her? You lied, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes. The simple admission somehow made it worse. Ava sank into the chair, her legs suddenly unsteady. You knew. That night in the pub. You already knew who I was, what I could do. Yes. Heath moved closer, but stopped when she flinched. So the conversation, the kiss, all of it? Ava pressed her fingers to her temples, trying to process. Was it real? Any of it? The kiss was real. Heath's voice was rough. Everything I felt, still feel, is real. But you're right. I should have been honest from the beginning. Ava looked up at him, and she felt something crack in her chest. Not anger. She barely knew him well enough for that. Just disappointment. The sick realization that she'd let herself hope for something impossible. I thought... She stopped, laughed shakily. For one night, I thought maybe someone saw me. Just me. Not what I could do or what I could give them. Heath's expression cracked. I'm sorry. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you got exactly what you wanted. You found me, figured out what I can do, and now you need my help. Look, I don't blame you for that. You're a king with a kingdom to protect. But I need you to be honest with me now. Is this, she gestured between them, is this real or is it just convenient? It's real, Heath said immediately, fiercely. Then he stopped, seemed to force himself to slow down. But I understand if you can't believe that. If you need time to... I don't have time. Ava's voice broke slightly. Neve doesn't have time. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me exactly what you need from me. No more games, no more flirting to make me comfortable. Just the truth. Heath was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. He pulled out a chair and sat across from her, giving her space. Silas has been 2 steps ahead of me for months, and without ThreadSight, I can't see his network clearly enough to stop him. So yes, I need you, but that doesn't mean I'm using you. Needing someone and using them aren't the same thing. Aren't they? No. His voice was fierce now. Using you would be forcing you, threatening you, taking away your choice. I'm not doing that. I'm asking, and I'm offering a fair trade. What's the trade? Help me identify Silas's network. Use your ThreadSight to map the conspiracy. In exchange, I'll rescue Neve and every other hostage he's holding. I'll give you enough gold to start over anywhere you want, under any name you choose. And, he paused, and I'll swear a blood oath that I won't trap you here, won't use the bond to manipulate you. When this is done, you'll be free to walk away. Ava stared at him. A blood oath? Binding magic? Unbreakable. Heath's eyes never left hers. I'll swear it right now if that's what it takes for you to trust me. I don't trust you, Heath, she whispered. I know. Something pained crossed his face. But maybe you can trust the oath. Ava's pride was tempted to say no, but Neve was out there, scared and alone and waiting for Ava to save her. And beneath her hurt and disappointment, that thread still pulsed between them. Steady. Real. If I do this, Ava said slowly, I want real answers. No more lies, no more games. You tell me everything about what you're really planning. Done. And the moment Neve is safe, I walk away. No arguments, no trying to convince me to stay. I take my gold, and my sister and I disappear. Heath's jaw tightened, but he nodded. If that's what you want. It is. All right. He moved to his desk, pulled out a knife. The blade was beautiful, etched with symbols that seemed to shift in the light. Then let's make it official. He drew the blade across his palm without hesitation. Blood welled up, dark against his skin. Then he offered the knife to Ava. Her hand shook as she took it. The metal was warm, like it held its own heat. She pressed the blade to her palm, hissed at the sharp sting, and watched, her blood mix with his as their hands clasped. I swear, Heath said, his voice resonating with power that made the air shimmer, that I will rescue your sister and all hostages held by Silas. I swear I won't trap you with the bond or use it to manipulate you. And I swear that when this is done, you'll have your freedom, gold, new identity, safe passage to wherever you want to go. His grip tightened. This I swear on my blood and my crown. If I break this oath, may the magic consume me. The air crackled. Ava felt power surge through their joined hands, hot and bright and absolute. It sank into her bones, sealed itself in her marrow. Heath released her hand carefully and immediately moved to his desk, pulling out a clean cloth and a small jar. Here, let me see. I'm fine. Humor me. His voice was gentle but firm as he took her hand, dabbing away the blood with surprising tenderness. He applied something cool from the jar, a healing salve that immediately eased the sting, then wrapped, her palm with clean linen, his fingers deft and careful. Only after he'd finished binding her hand did he tend to his own, wrapping the cloth around his palm with quick, efficient movements. There, he said quietly, meeting her eyes. Now we're both taken care of. The simple consideration of it, treating her wound before his own, made Ava's throat tight. You didn't have to do that, Yes, I did. Heath's thumb brushed over the bandage on her palm. The oath is binding, Ava, but that doesn't mean I can't still show you I care in smaller ways. She stared at their bandaged hands, feeling the warmth of the salve and the weight of what they'd just done. This oath, it really only binds you? Yes. If you betray me, you betray me. Heath held her gaze. I'm not binding you to anything. You're free to walk away whenever you choose. He paused, something vulnerable crossing his face. I'm just asking you to trust that I'll keep my word. That's all. Heath explained while she sat by the fire, her palms still tingling from the oath. Silas had been planning his coup for 3 years, ever since Heath took the throne after his parents' deaths. Silas believed he had the stronger claim, and when the council chose Heath instead, his cousin had smiled and bowed but begun plotting. He's been smart about it, Heath said, pacing in front of the windows. Nothing overt, nothing I could prove. Just slowly building support, making alliances, positioning himself as the reasonable alternative if I failed as king. His voice turned bitter. And then 6 months ago, the raids started. Villages burned, people with rare magical gifts taken in the night. At first, Heath thought it was bandits. Then he started seeing patterns. The raids were too organized, too targeted. Someone was building an army. I couldn't prove it was Silas, Heath continued. Every thread I followed went cold. Every lead disappeared. He's been covering his tracks perfectly. He turned to face her. That's why I need thread, sight, to identify his network before he moves against me. When do you think he'll strike? Soon. Heath's expression was grim. He's been escalating. The raids are getting bolder, his force is larger. I'd guess he'll make his move within the month. Ava absorbed this, her mind racing. And the hostages? How many? At least 40 that we know of. Probably more. Heath's hands flexed. He's using them as leverage. Cooperate or your family dies. It's effective. Have you tried rescuing them? 3 times. Each time, he moved them before we could strike. Or he killed them to prove a point. Something dangerous flickered in Heath's eyes. He's always one step ahead, like he knows what I'm planning before I do. There's a spy in your court, Ava concluded. Several, I think. But I don't know who. Can't trust anyone. He met her eyes. That's another reason I need you, Ava. Not just to map Silas's network, but to find the traitors in my own house. The weight of what he was asking settled over her like a shroud. That's terrifying? Heath's smile was humorless. Yes, but it's the only way to stop him before more people die. Ava stared into the fire, watching flames dance across logs. Everything in her urged her to let these powerful men destroy each other without dragging her into it. But that thread between them pulsed steadily, and when she looked at Heath, she didn't see a king playing games. She saw weary desperation, the weight of too many deaths already on his conscience. Let's talk about Threadsight. What exactly do you need me to do? She asked finally. Relief flooded Heath's expression. He moved to sit across from her, close enough that their knees almost touched. Can you see them? The threads? Ava nodded slowly. Since I was 8, after my mother died. What do they look like? She hesitated, then said quietly, colors, textures, gold for loyalty, red for betrayal, silver for family bonds, blue for trust, purple for romantic love, black, her voice caught, black for dark, magic, compulsion. Heath leaned forward. Can you see mine? Yes. The word escaped before she could stop it. What do they look like? Ava's eyes traced the threads radiating from him, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, stretching in every direction. Most were gold or blue, shimmering with loyalty and trust. But she could see thinner threads too, red ones that twisted and frayed at the edges. You have more threads than anyone I've ever seen, she said softly. They're everywhere, connecting to the city, to the kingdom, to... She stopped, following a particularly bright gold cord that led south. To an army. You have soldiers. 300, Heath confirmed, camped outside the city, and there are red threads mixed in, at least a dozen. She focused harder, trying to follow them. They lead to... Sorry, I can't see where they end. Too far away. Probably Silas's territory, Heath said grimly. Those are the traitors, people sworn to me who've turned to him. Ava's head was starting to ache from the concentration. I can't identify them from here. Would need to see them in person, follow the threads directly. Can you do that? At court? Maybe. If I can get close enough to touch them. She met his eyes. The threads are clearer through physical contact. I'd need to interact with your people, council members, soldiers, servants, anyone who might be compromised. I can arrange that. Heath's voice was urgent now, almost hopeful. There's a gathering tomorrow night, council dinner. Every major player will be there. I could introduce you as my new advisor. Absolutely not. Ava shook her head. If Silas has spies at court, announcing I'm your advisor would put a target on my back immediately. Then what do you suggest? Ava thought for a moment. A scribe. Or someone from the archives. Low level enough that no one pays attention, but with access to serve at formal dinners. I could move through the room, touch wine glasses, observe interactions. Heath's eyes lit up. That could work. Then something darker crossed his face. But Ava, if Silas's spies realize what you are, they'll try to kill you. Or worse, take you to him. I know. She was surprised by how calm her voice sounded. But I don't see another option. Not if we want to save Neve and the others. Heath was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. I hate this. Putting you in danger. You're not putting me anywhere. I'm choosing this. Ava held his gaze. For Neve. For the hostages. And because... She stopped, not sure how to finish. Because? Because someone has to stop him. The words came out firmer than she felt. And apparently, I'm the only one who can see clearly enough to do it. Heath's expression softened. You're remarkable. You know that? Heat crept up Ava's neck. Stop. Why? It's true. He leaned forward, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Most people in the face of real danger would run. But you're sitting here planning infiltration like it's a normal dinner conversation. I'm terrified, Ava admitted quietly. I know. Heath's hand moved to cover hers where it rested on the chair arm. The touch sent electricity racing up her arm, made that thread between them pulse brighter. But you're doing it anyway. That's what makes you remarkable. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. The fire crackling, the thread pulsing, the way his thumb traced slow circles on the back of her hand. We should plan, Ava said, her voice coming out breathier than intended. For tomorrow night. We should, Heath agreed, but he didn't move, didn't release her hand. Heath, tell me you feel it. His voice was rough, urgent. Tell me I'm not imagining this. Feel what? This. He turned her hand over, traced the silver scar across her palm. This thing between us that makes my wolf claw at my ribs every time you're near. The way I can smell your scent from anywhere. The fact that right now, every instinct I have is urging me to pin you against this wall. He stopped himself, jaw clenched, but his eyes were molten. And what? The words left her mouth before she could stop them, breathless and reckless. His grip on her hand tightened. Find out if you taste as good as you smell. You already know the answer to that, she whispered, her voice barely steady. The memory of the other night burned between them, his mouth on hers, desperate and claiming. And yes, I feel it too, and it terrifies me. She forced herself to meet his eyes. I don't know if it's real or if it's just magic manipulating us both. Does it matter? Heath's hand tightened on hers. If it feels real, if it makes you happy, does the source matter? Yes. Ava pulled her hand away, wrapped her arms around herself. Because when this is over, I'm leaving. I'm taking Neve and disappearing. And if I let myself fall for you, if I let this bond pull me in, I'll never be able to walk away. Pain flashed across Heath's face, raw and unguarded. Then don't. Don't what? Don't walk away. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Stay. Help me rebuild. Be my partner in all of this. I can't. Why not? Because I've spent my entire life being used for what I can do. Ava's voice cracked. My mother was burned alive because someone thought her gift made her dangerous. I've been forced into hiding, never letting anyone close, never trusting anyone. And now you're asking me to trust you, to believe that what you feel is real and not just the bond pushing us together. I can't. She stopped, swallowing hard. I can't take that risk. Heath was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, moved to the window, putting distance between them. I understand. Do you? No, he admitted, his voice rough. From where I'm standing, the bond is the only thing in my life that feels completely honest. But I'm not you. Haven't lived your life or carried your scars. He turned to face her. So I'll respect your choice. I'll help you save Neve, stop Silas, and then... He exhaled slowly, and it sounded like surrender. Then I'll let you go. His voice cracked, just barely. Even though losing you will be the hardest thing I've ever done. Ava's chest tightened painfully. She wanted to go to him, but fear held her frozen. Tomorrow night, she said instead, focusing on the practical. I'll need a cover story, papers identifying me as a scribe, access to the archives so I can study your court members beforehand. Heath nodded, his expression shuddering back to professional. Done. I'll have everything ready by morning. He moved to his desk, pulled out parchment and ink. Give me your details. I'll forge the necessary documents. They spent the next hour planning, discussing who would be at the dinner, what Ava should look for, how she'd signal if she identified someone compromised. Heath was thorough, methodical, asking questions she hadn't thought of and offering contingencies for scenarios she hoped wouldn't happen. Through it all, that thread pulsed between them, steady, unwavering, impossible to ignore. When the light outside began to fade, Heath walked her to the door. I'll send someone for you tomorrow afternoon to bring you to the palace, get you settled in the archives. All right? Ava hesitated, her hand on the door handle. Heath? Yes? Thank you. For the oath. For being honest. She forced herself to meet his eyes. It means more than you know. His smile was soft, almost sad. I'm just trying to be worthy of your trust, Ava, even if I can't earn anything else. The words settled in her chest like a weight. She wanted to say something, to tell him that maybe, if things were different, if she wasn't so damaged. But the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she just nodded and slipped out into the gathering dusk. Behind her, through the door, she heard Heath let out a long, shaky breath, and that golden thread between them pulled tight, like it was trying to drag her back to him. Ava walked home through darkening streets, her mind spinning and her heart aching, and that thread still pulsing with colors she was terrified to name. The council dinner was exactly as suffocating as Ava had feared. She stood against the wall in her borrowed scribe's robes, plain gray wool that made her invisible, and watched powerful people orbit each other like planets. The threads were overwhelming, hundreds of them, crisscrossing the ballroom in a dizzying web of gold and silver and blue, and red. So much red her eyes hurt trying to track it all. Heath sat at the head table, dressed in formal blacks with his crown glinting in candlelight. He looked every inch the king, commanding, untouchable, his face a mask of polite interest as council members droned on about taxes and trade routes. But Ava could see his threads, the way they twisted and pulled toward her across the room, the bond, trying to close the distance between them. She focused on the council instead. Lord Garrett sat to Heath's left, silver-haired and distinguished, with threads that glowed pure gold. Loyal, then. Probably had been since before Heath took the throne. Commander Forge was across from him, built like a mountain, his scarred hands wrapped around a wine glass. His threads were more complex, mostly gold, but with thin red cords twisted through them like infection in a wound. Compromised, but not entirely turned. Silas had leverage on him. Lady Marin, the master of coin, had threads that led everywhere, to merchants, to minor lords, to the servants pouring wine. Most were blue, suggesting alliances built on mutual benefit rather than loyalty. But there were red threads too, thin but present, leading south toward Silas's territory. Ava cataloged them all, memorizing faces and threads, building a mental map of the conspiracy. It was worse than Heath had feared. Nearly a third of his council had red threads, some thick and brazen, others barely visible, suggesting recent or reluctant betrayal. She needed to get closer, needed to touch, them to see the details. Ava moved through the room with a wine pitcher, refilling glasses and trying to look invisible. When she reached Commander Forge, she deliberately stumbled, catching herself on his shoulder. The contact sent images flooding her mind. A daughter, young, maybe 10, held at Thornhaven alongside Neve. Silas's voice. Help us, and she lives. Betray us, and we send you pieces. Ava pulled away, gasping. Forge looked at her with dead eyes, and she saw the truth. He hated what he was doing, hated himself, but he loved his daughter more. She moved on, touched Lady Marin's wine glass, saw a different story. Greed. Ambition. Marin believed Silas would win and wanted to be on the winning side when power changed hands. Each touch revealed something new. Coercion, corruption, fear, ambition. By the time she'd worked her way around the room, Ava's head pounded and her stomach churned. She caught Heath's eye across the room and gave a slight nod. He made an excuse, stood, and disappeared into a side corridor. Ava followed 5 minutes later, her heart hammering. Heath was waiting in a small anteroom, pacing like a caged animal. The moment she entered, he spun toward her. Well? 9 confirmed traitors, Ava said quietly. Forge, Marin, Lord Davos, General Cade, and 5 others. Some are being coerced. Forge has a daughter at Thornhaven. Others are opportunists who think Silas will win. She pressed her fingers to her temples. But Heath, there's something else. What? The threads don't all lead to Silas. Ava forced herself to meet his eyes. Some lead to someone else. Someone in this palace. Someone close to you. Heath went very still. How close? I don't know. I'd need to follow the threads, but they're complex. Layered. She swallowed hard. Whoever it is, they're good at hiding. Can you find them? Maybe. If I can get into the private quarters, touch personal belongings. She stopped at the look on his face. What is it? That's dangerous. Then we'll be careful. Ava straightened her spine. But Heath, if you have a spy that close, someone feeding Silas everything you plan, you'll never win. They'll stay one step ahead forever. He knew she was right. She could see it in his face. But he didn't like it. Tomorrow, he said finally, I'll arrange for you to inventory the private archives. That'll give you access to the residential wing without raising suspicion. His hands flexed. But Ava, if anything feels wrong, if you sense any danger at all, you run. Promise me. I promise. I mean it. Heath closed the distance between them, his hands coming up to frame her face. I can't lose you. The intensity in his voice made Ava's breath catch. This is just business. Remember? The oath. The deal. I know. I know you're leaving when this is done, but I need you to understand something first. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones, and the gentleness of it made her eyes sting. What I feel for you has nothing to do with Threadsight, or stopping Silas, or any of this political mess. I would feel this way if you were powerless, if you couldn't help me at all, because you're brave and brilliant, and you make me want to be better than I am. Stop, Ava whispered. Please. Why? Because if you keep talking like that, Her voice broke. I'll start believing you. And I can't let myself hope that this is real, because when our deal ends, tears spilled over despite her efforts to hold them back. When it ends, it'll destroy me. Heath's expression cracked, all that careful control shattering. He pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other wrapped around her waist. Then don't let it end, he breathed against her hair. Stay. Choose this. Choose us. Ava wanted to, but fear had its claws sunk deep, and 18 years of self-preservation couldn't be undone with pretty words and desperate kisses. I can't, she said into his chest. Not yet. Maybe. Not ever. Heath held her tighter. I'll wait. You shouldn't. Too bad. His voice was fierce now. I'll wait as long as it takes for you to trust me, even if it takes forever. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped around each other, that golden thread blazing between them like a second heartbeat. Finally, Ava pulled back, swiped at her eyes. I should go, before someone notices we're both gone. Heath nodded, but his hands lingered on her waist. Tomorrow. The archives. I'll make sure you have everything you need. Thank you. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Ava? For what it's worth? His smile was crooked, vulnerable. I already feel too much for you, so whatever happens, you're not the only one at risk. The words followed her all the way back to her apartment, echoing through her mind as she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The palace archives smelled like old parchment and dust and secrets. Ava spent the morning cataloging documents, or pretending to, at least. In reality, she was using her access to the residential wing to map threads. Most servants had straightforward connections, loyalty to the crown, affection for fellow staff, family bonds stretching to the city below. But one set of threads made her pause. She was passing a door marked Senior Steward when she saw them. Red threads, thick as rope, leading from inside the room to somewhere south, to Silas's territory. Ava's heart kicked against her ribs. She glanced down the corridor, empty, then tried the door. Locked. She could pick it. Had learned the skill years ago when hiding meant finding places no one else could access. But if someone came by, if she got caught. The sound of footsteps made the decision for her. Ava ducked into a nearby alcove, pressing herself against the wall as two guards walked past, their conversation fading into distance. When silence returned, she moved quickly back to the door and pulled out the thin pick she'd hidden in her boot. The king lock was high quality, but not impossible to break. After 30 seconds of careful work, it clicked open. Inside, the room was neat to the point of obsession. Papers stacked in perfect piles, books aligned with military precision, and on the desk, a letter bearing Silas's seal. Ava's hands shook as she reached for it. The moment her fingers touched the parchment, images flooded her mind. The steward, Harold, meeting someone in shadow. The king suspects nothing. The girl has identified most of the council, but she doesn't know about me yet. Silas's voice. Keep it that way. And when the opportunity presents itself, eliminate her. Make it look like an accident. Ava dropped the letter like it burned her. Harold. Senior Steward Harold, who'd served the crown for 30 years, who had access to everything, who knew every secret in the palace. The door behind her opened. Ava spun, adrenaline spiking, to find Harold himself standing in the doorway. He was an older man, slight and balding, with watery blue eyes that looked almost grandfatherly. Those eyes went cold when he saw her holding the letter. "Well," he said quietly, closing the door behind him, "this is unfortunate." Ava's hand went to the knife in her boot, but Harold was faster. He pulled a blade from his sleeve, small, wicked-looking, probably poisoned, and moved with surprising speed for someone his age. She dodged, barely, his blade scoring across her arm instead of sinking into her ribs. Pain flared hot and immediate. Ava kicked out, caught him in the knee, then used his stumble to put the desk between them. "Heath will know," she gasped, cradling her bleeding arm. "He'll know you did this." "Will he?" Harold's smile was thin. "I'll tell him you were snooping where you shouldn't have been, that you threatened me. Self-defense is a perfectly reasonable explanation." He moved around the desk, blade raised. "And once you're dead, there'll be no one to identify the rest of Silas's network. The king will fight blind." He lunged. Ava grabbed a paperweight from the desk, threw it at his face. It connected with a satisfying crunch, buying her seconds to grab her own knife. They clashed in the middle of the room, her defense sloppy from pain and fear, his attacks methodical and practiced. He was better trained, stronger, and that blade was definitely poisoned. She could feel heat spreading from the cut on her arm, making her movements sluggish. Harold backed her against the bookshelf, his blade aimed at her throat. Nothing personal, just business. Then the door exploded inward. Heath moved like a violent storm, shirt torn, muscles rippling, eyes gone full wolf gold. He grabbed Harold by the throat, lifted him off the ground, and slammed him into the wall hard enough to crack plaster. "You touched her," Heath snarled, and his voice was more animal than human. Harold wheezed, clawing at Heath's iron grip. "My lord, I don't care." Heath's fingers tightened. "You're done. Heath, wait." Ava pushed off the bookshelf, swaying. "We need him. To testify. To expose the rest." Heath's eyes cut to her, and what she saw there made her blood run cold. Pure predatory rage, barely leashed. The wolf looking out through human eyes. Then his gaze dropped to her bleeding arm, and something in his expression broke. "You're hurt," he said, and his voice was rough, shaking. "It's not deep." Heath dropped Harold like garbage, crossed to Ava in 2 strides, and caught her before her knees could buckle. "You're poisoned," he growled, examining the wound. "I'm fine." "You're not." His hands shook as he tore a strip from his shirt, wrapped it tight around her arm. "You're pale. You're swaying, and that coward tried to kill you." His eyes met hers, and she saw fear beneath the rage. "I almost lost you." "But you didn't," Ava said softly, her free hand coming up to cup his jaw. "I'm okay. We're okay." Behind them, Harold groaned, trying to crawl toward the door. Heath's eyes snapped open, and the wolf was back, cold and merciless. "Someone get chains," Heath called, his voice carrying command that made the walls ring. Within seconds, guards appeared. "Lock him in the cells. I want 6 men on him at all times. If he so much as breathes wrong, you have permission to end him." They dragged Harold away, still wheezing threats about what Silas would do when he found out. When they were alone, Heath turned back to Ava. "We need to get that poison out. Now. The healers, they're too far away." Heath was already moving, scooping her into his arms like she weighed nothing. "My chambers. I have supplies there." Ava felt the room tilting dangerously now, and her arm felt like it was on fire, so she just let her head fall against his chest and listened to his heart hammering beneath her ear. Heath's chambers were larger than her entire apartment. He laid her on the bed, massive and covered in dark furs, and immediately began pulling out vials and bandages from a cabinet. "This is going to hurt," he warned, uncorking something that smelled terrible. "The poison needs to be drawn out." He worked with steady hands, cleaning the wound and applying some kind of paste that made her hiss in pain. Then he wrapped it properly, his touch gentle despite the tension thrumming through his body. "Done," he said finally, sitting back. "You'll have a few days of fever, but you'll live." "Good to know." Ava tried to smile, but her head was swimming. "Can't save your kingdom if I'm dead." "Screw the kingdom." Heath's voice was rough. "I don't care about any of it if you're not okay." "You don't mean that?" "Yes, I do." He moved to sit beside her on the bed, his hand finding hers. "I thought I'd be too late. Thought I'd find you bleeding out in that room. And Ava," his voice broke slightly, "I've lost everyone I've ever loved, my parents, nearly lost my whole kingdom. But the thought of losing you was worse than all of it combined." Ava's throat tightened. "Heath, I love you," he said simply. "I know you don't believe it, but I love you, Ava. Not because of the bond or your gift or what you can do for me, but because you're you. You're brave and sharp, and you don't let anyone make you feel small. And because—" He stopped, cupping her face with infinite gentleness. "Because my world is better with you in it." Tears burned in Ava's eyes. Every instinct screamed at her to pull away, keep her walls up, but the poison was making her weak, and Heath's eyes were so earnest, and that thread between them was blazing like the sun. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know." He pressed his forehead to hers. "But I promise you, Ava, I will never be another person who uses you. If you let me in, I'll spend every day proving I'm worthy of that trust." Ava looked at him, saw the exhaustion in the lines around his eyes, the weight he carried, the way he held her like she was something precious, saw the man beneath the crown. And for the first time, she let herself wonder if maybe, just maybe, it was safe to trust him. "Ask me again," she said softly. "When this is over, when Neve is safe and Silas is stopped and I've had time to think clearly." Heath's smile was brilliant, filled with hope. "I will. I'm not promising I'll say yes." "I know." He kissed her forehead, soft and sweet. "But at least you're not saying no." Ava's answering laugh turned into a yawn. The poison and the fear and the adrenaline were all crashing down, dragging her towards sleep. Heath settled beside her and pulled her against his chest. "Rest," he murmured. "I've got you." Ava's eyes drifted closed, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat lulling her under. The last thing she felt before sleep claimed her was his hand in her hair and that golden thread between them pulsing softly, like it was singing her to sleep. She woke to sunlight and the sound of angry voices beyond the door. "I don't care what protocols say. I need to see her." The king left orders. "I'm her sister. You absolute—" Ava sat up too fast, her head spinning. "Neve?" The door burst open and a girl launched herself onto the bed, nearly knocking Ava over with the force of her hug. Neve. Older than Ava remembered, nearly 17 now, but unmistakably her sister. Dark hair, sharp green eyes, and currently crying into Ava's shoulder. Ava held her tight, tears streaming down her own face. The king said, "He said you were hurt, that someone tried to kill you. I'm fine. Just a scratch." Ava pulled back to look at Neve properly. She was too thin, shadows under her eyes, but alive. Whole. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "No. The king's soldiers came last night, pulled us all out. There were 17 of us." Neve's voice shook. "Ava, they were going to. If you hadn't helped, if the king hadn't moved when he did. But he did. You're safe now." Neve wiped her eyes. "He seems nice. For a king. And the way he looked at you when I got here, like you were the only thing in the world that mattered." She paused for a beat, studying Ava's face. "Is he? It's complicated. That's what people say when they're falling in love but don't want to admit it. Ava's face flamed. Nev, I'm just saying. Nev's smile was impish despite the tears. He's handsome, rich, clearly obsessed with you. You could do worse. I thought I was supposed to be the older sister here. Someone has to be practical. A knock interrupted them. Heath stood in the doorway, freshly dressed, looking uncertain for the first time since Ava had met him. Am I interrupting? No, Neve said quickly, hopping off the bed. I was just leaving. Girl talk, you know. Very boring for kings. She squeezed Ava's hand once, hard, then slipped past Heath with a knowing smile. When they were alone, Heath moved to sit on the edge of the bed. How are you feeling? Better. The fever broke. Ava flexed her bandaged arm experimentally, still sore, but manageable. Good. Heath's hand found hers, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. I have news. Harold talked, gave up names, locations, everything. We hit 3 of Silas's safe houses this morning, freed 20 more hostages, and we know where he is now. Ava's pulse kicked up. Where? Blackwater Fortress, 3 days' ride north. Heath's expression was grim. He's fortifying, bringing all his forces together. If we're going to move against him, it has to be now. How many does he have? 200 soldiers, plus the magic users he's coerced or corrupted. Heath's jaw tightened. It'll be a bloodbath. Can you win? With Threadsight? Yes. You can tell me who's truly loyal to him versus who's being forced. We target the leadership, break the compulsion on the others, and his army crumbles. He met her eyes. But I can't ask you to ride into battle, Ava. You've done enough, more than enough. You're not asking, Ava said firmly. I'm telling you I'm coming. Ava, Heath, listen to me. She squeezed his hand. I can help. I can see the threads of compulsion, identify who needs to be stopped. You need me there. I need you. Alive more than anything. His voice was rough. I need you safe. I'll be as safe with you as I would be anywhere else. Ava lifted her free hand to cup his jaw. Besides, you're going to be there, and I'm starting to think you'd burn the world down before you let someone hurt me. Heath's smile was crooked, accurate. Then he sobered. If we do this, if you come with me, you stay by my side the entire time. No arguments, no running off to play hero. Deal. And after... He stopped, something vulnerable crossing his face. After, when this is done, I'm asking that question, whether you're ready for it or not. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his mouth found hers in a kiss that was gentle and desperate and full of promise. Ava melted into it, her hands fisting in his shirt, pouring every complicated emotion she couldn't voice into the press of lips and tongue. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Heath pressed his forehead to hers. We ride at dawn. I'll be ready. The fortress rose from the northern hills like a scar, all dark stone and sharp angles, built for war and little else. Silas's banners flew from its towers, black with a silver wolf, a mockery of Heath's own crest. Ava sat on horseback beside Heath, surrounded by 300 soldiers and trying not to let terror overwhelm her. This was different from the palace intrigue. This was real battle. Second thoughts? Heath asked quietly. Too many to count. But she forced a smile. Doesn't mean I'm backing out, though. His hand found hers, squeezed once. Stay close to me. No matter what happens. I will. Heath raised his voice, addressing his soldiers. Silas has betrayed this kingdom. He's taken innocent people and twisted them into weapons. Today, we end his tyranny. Today, we bring our people home. His eyes flashed gold. For the northern territories. The answering roar shook the air. Then they charged. The battle was chaos. Silas's forces poured from the fortress. Soldiers in black armor, magic users with flames and ice coating their hands. Heath shifted mid-charge, his body flowing from human to wolf in a ripple of power that stole Ava's breath. He was magnificent, massive, with midnight black fur and those same golden eyes. He tore through enemy lines like a force of nature. Ava watched him take down 3 soldiers before she remembered she had a job to do, focusing on the threads. Most of Silas's soldiers had black cords wrapped around them, compulsion magic, forcing loyalty. But some threads were gold or red, true believers or opportunists. Ava shouted coordinates to Heath's commanders, directing them toward targets worth capturing versus those who needed to be freed. They pushed deeper into the fortress. Ava stayed close to Heath's wolf form, protected by his massive body and the soldiers who formed a shield around them. Every time someone got too close, Heath was there, teeth and claws and brutal efficiency. They found Silas in the Great Hall. He looked like Heath, same sharp features, same build, but where Heath's eyes held exhaustion and care, Silas's burned with cold ambition. He stood surrounded by his inner circle, a smile playing at his mouth. "Cousin," Silas said pleasantly, "you're persistent. I'll give you that." Heath shifted back to human form, uncaring that he was now naked and covered in blood. Someone threw him a cloak, which he wrapped around his waist without taking his eyes off Silas. "It's over. Your network is exposed. Your soldiers are surrendering. Give up. Or what? You'll kill me?" Silas's laugh was cold. "We both know you don't have the stomach for it. You're too noble, too concerned with honor and justice. That's why you'll lose, Heath. That's why you've always been weak." "I'm not the one hiding behind hostages and compulsion magic," Heath shot back. "I'm not the one so desperate for power I'd torture children to get it." "Desperate?" Silas's eyes flashed. "I'm claiming what should have been, mine from the beginning. Father should have named me heir. The council should have chosen me. But they picked you, the soft one, the sentimental fool who cares more about peasants than power." "You're right," Heath said quietly. "I do care about them. That's what makes me a better king." Silas snarled and lunged. The fight was brutal. Silas shifted mid-leap. His wolf form was slightly smaller than Heath's, gray where Heath was black, but fast and vicious. They clashed in the center of the hall, a tangle of fur and fangs and violence. Ava wanted to look away, but couldn't. Heath was powerful, but Silas fought dirty, going for tendons and weak points, using the environment to his advantage. They crashed through furniture, blood spattering stone, and every time Heath got the upper hand, Silas would twist away. Then Silas's eyes found Ava. He shifted back to human, blood streaming from a dozen wounds, and smiled. There she is, the thread sight girl, the one who ruined everything. Leave her. "Alone," Heath snarled, positioning himself between them. "Why? She's the reason you found me, the reason my network fell apart." Silas pulled a dagger from his belt, black metal that hummed with dark magic. "She deserves to pay for that." He threw it. Heath moved impossibly fast, shifting and leaping to intercept. The blade sank into his shoulder instead of Ava's heart. Heath crashed to the ground with a yelp of pain, and Silas was on him in an instant, pressing the attack. Ava didn't think. She grabbed a sword from a fallen soldier and charged. She'd never fought in her life, had no training, no skill, but rage burned through her veins like wildfire, and she was done. Done being helpless, done watching monsters hurt the people she loved. She swung with everything she had. The blade connected with Silas's back, and she felt it, the resistance of flesh, the wet give as it sliced through muscle. Blood sprayed hot across her hands. Silas's roar split the air, feral and shocked, and the sound fed something dark and fierce inside her. He spun toward her, murder in his eyes. "You little—" Heath slammed into him with the force of an avalanche. They went down in a tangle of fur and flesh and violence. This time there was no restraint, no calculated strikes. Heath was pure savage fury, teeth tearing, claws rending, the wet crack of bone. Silas screaming, thrashing, his claws raking deep gouges down Heath's sides that painted his fur crimson. Heath didn't even flinch. His jaws locked around Silas's throat and crushed. The sound was horrible. Silas's claws scrabbled uselessly at Heath's muzzle, his legs kicking, body bucking in desperate animal panic. Then the thrashing slowed, weakened, stopped. Heath held on, his eyes blazing gold and pitiless, until Silas's hand dropped limp to the ground, until the light faded from those hateful eyes. Only then did he release him. The hall fell silent. One of Silas's soldiers dropped his weapon, followed by another, then another. Within seconds, the entire enemy force was surrendering, the black threads of compulsion snapping like broken strings. Heath shifted back to human, swaying. Blood spilled from the dagger wound in his shoulder and a dozen other cuts. Ava ran to him, catching him before he could collapse. No, no, no! Her hands flew to the worst wound, trying to staunch the bleeding, but there was so much blood. Too much. Heath, why would you— Her voice broke completely. Tears blurred her vision. You're okay, Heath breathed, and despite everything, the pain, the blood loss, the fact that he could barely stand, his hands came up to frame her face with devastating gentleness. His thumbs brushed away her tears. That's all that matters. You're bleeding. I can't lose you. The words ripped out of her, raw and terrified. I can't. You won't. His smile was weak but genuine. I'll heal. Perks of being a shifter. He swayed again, and she tightened her grip on him, holding him upright. Just need a minute. Healers were already rushing forward, soldiers securing the fortress. Someone wrapped a cloak around Heath's shoulders while medics worked on his wounds. Through it all, he kept one hand tangled with Ava's, like he couldn't bear to let go. It's done, he said quietly. It's finally done. Ava pressed her forehead to his, tears streaming. You scared me. I know. I'm sorry. Don't do it again. I'll try. His thumb brushed her cheek. Though I can't promise I won't keep throwing myself in front of danger if you're the one being threatened. Kind of comes with the whole desperately in love with you territory. Despite everything, Ava laughed. You're ridiculous. And you're magnificent. Heath pulled her closer, ignoring the medics trying to work around them. Also scary. Did you really attack my cousin with a sword? He tried to kill you, so you charged him, with no training, no backup. Yes, that's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Heath's smile was brilliant despite his pale face and the blood soaking through bandages. God, I love you. The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest and impossible to take back. As Ava looked at him, she saw the man who'd caught her when she fell, who'd walked her home, who'd made her a blood oath to protect her freedom, who'd fought his own cousin to save a kingdom and almost died protecting her. I love you too, she whispered. Heath's eyes went wide. What? I love you. She said it louder this time, more certain. I'm terrified of it, and I don't know if I'm ready for everything that means, but I love you, Heath. His kiss was desperate, messy, tasting of blood and salt and victory. His hands were shaking as they cradled her face, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. Say it again, he breathed against her mouth. I love you. Again. I love you, you ridiculous, stubborn, wonderful man. Ava laughed through her tears. Is that clear enough? Getting there. Heath kissed her again, softer this time. Though I might need you to repeat it a few hundred more times, just to be sure. They stayed like that, wrapped around each other on a blood-soaked floor, surrounded by soldiers and medics and the aftermath of battle. And for the first time in 18 years, Ava let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, it was safe to hope. The coronation wasn't Ava's, Heath had been king for years. This was something else. A renewal of vows to the kingdom, a celebration of victory, and according to Heath, an excuse to show off his mate to the entire court. Ava stood beside him on the dais, wearing deep blue silk that made her eyes glow, and watched powerful people swear loyalty. "You're smiling," Heath murmured, his hand finding hers. "Am I?" "Yes, it's very distracting." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Makes me want to dismiss everyone and take you back to our chambers." "Our chambers?" Ava raised an eyebrow. "Presumptuous. You've been sleeping there for 3 weeks. I was recovering from near death. And now? Now I'm considering my options." Heath's smile turned wicked. "Consider this. You stay in my chambers, in my bed, and I spend every night proving exactly how much I worship you." Heat curled through Ava's belly. "That's a compelling argument. I'm very persuasive." "Arrogant, you mean. Can't I be both?" She laughed, and the sound drew curious looks from the assembled court. Later, after the ceremony concluded and the celebration began, Neve cornered Ava in the gardens. "So," her sister said without preamble, "you're staying?" It wasn't a question, but Ava nodded anyway. "Yes. Even though you could take the gold and run? Start over somewhere safe?" "Safe is overrated." Ava looked back toward the ballroom, where Heath was visible through the windows, laughing at something Commander Forge had said, looking younger and lighter than he had in months. "I spent 18 years running, being safe, and I was miserable. And now? Now I'm scared, but also happier than I've ever been. He makes me want to be brave instead of careful, makes me want to stay and build something lasting instead of running to the next thing." Neve hugged her. "I'm glad. He's good for you. Don't let him hear you say that. His ego is big enough already." "I heard that," Heath called from behind them, making Neve laugh. He joined them in the garden, pressing a kiss to Ava's temple. "Your sister is spreading vicious rumors about me." "All true ones," Neve said sweetly. "I told her you're arrogant, stubborn, and far too used to getting your way." "Accurate." Heath grinned. "Also handsome, generous, and deeply in love with your sister. That too." Neve made her excuses and left them alone. Heath pulled Ava into his arms, swaying to the distant music. "Dance with me? Here? There's no one watching." "Exactly." His voice was soft, intimate. "Just us. The way I like it best." They moved together in the moonlight, that golden thread pulsing between them in time with the music. Ava rested her head against his chest and let herself simply feel the steady beat of his heart, the warmth of his hands, the absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. "I have something for you," Heath said after a while. "If it's expensive, it's not." He pulled back slightly, reaching into his pocket. "Well, it is, but that's not the point." He produced a ring, simple gold band, but when Ava looked closer, she saw threads etched into the metal, intricate patterns that matched the ones she saw connecting people. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "It's a promise." Heath's voice was serious now. "I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. I know you need time, need to be sure. But this..." He slid the ring onto her finger. "This is a promise that I'll wait as long as you need, that I'll prove every day I'm worth your trust, and that when you're ready, I'll be here." Ava's eyes burned. "Heath, you don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "Just wear it. Let it remind you that you're not alone anymore, that someone sees you, all of you, and loves you anyway." She kissed him, instead of answering, poured everything she felt into it, love and fear and hope and promise. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Heath's eyes were bright. "I'll take that as a yes to wearing the ring," he said, slightly breathless. "Yes to the ring." Ava smiled against his mouth. "And Heath? You can stop waiting." He pulled back to look at her. You can stop waiting because I'm ready now. She took his face in her hands. I love you. I want this. I'm ready to build something together instead of planning my escape route. Heath's smile was brilliant, incandescent. Then stay. Be my mate, my partner, my everything. Help me rule this kingdom, raise a family, and grow old together. His voice roughened. Choose me, Ava. Every day. The way I choose you. Yes. The word escaped as barely a breath. Yes to all of it. He kissed her deeply, his hands framing her face like she was something precious. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with want. Come with me, he said, his voice rough. He didn't wait for an answer. He swept her up into his arms, and she laughed, breathless and surprised, as he carried her through the garden toward the palace. Heath. I've been patient, he murmured against her hair. I've been respectful. But if you think I'm spending another night without making this official, you're mistaken. Heat flooded through her. Who said I'd agree? You did. His smile was wicked. About 30 seconds ago when you kissed me back like that. She couldn't argue with his logic. He carried her through corridors, past guards who wisely looked away, up the stairs to his chambers. The door closed behind them with a decisive click, and then it was just them, the firelight casting shadows across his face, his hands still holding her like he couldn't bear to let go. Tell me you want this, he said quietly. Tell me you're sure. I'm sure. She reached up, traced the line of his jaw. I want you. All of you. Something fierce and tender crossed his face. He set her down gently, his hands sliding to her waist. I love you, he said roughly, in case I haven't mentioned it in the last hour. You might have. Her fingers found the laces of his shirt, but I don't mind hearing it again. I love you, Ava. He caught her hand, brought it to his lips. You're the best thing that ever fell into my lap. That's a terrible joke. You're laughing. She was, and then his mouth found hers again, and there was no more talking. He undressed her slowly, reverently, his hands learning every curve. She did the same for him, tracing the wounds that had recently healed, pressing kisses to each one. When he finally lifted her and carried her to his bed, she went willingly, eagerly. The first touch of skin against skin stole her breath. He was warm and solid above her. His hands mapped her body like he was memorizing her, his mouth following, leaving trails of heat that made her arch against him. Beautiful, he murmured against her throat. So beautiful. She pulled him closer, her legs wrapping around his waist, and when they finally joined, it felt like something clicking into place, like puzzle pieces finding their match. The golden thread between them blazed so bright she could see it behind her closed eyelids. They moved together, urgent at first, then slower, savoring, learning each other's rhythms, what made the other gasp, where to touch, how to drive each other wild. He whispered her name like a prayer. She marked his shoulders with her nails, her teeth. When they finally shattered together, it was with her name on his lips and his face buried in her neck, their hearts hammering in sync. Afterward, he gathered her close, tucking her against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat gradually slowing, his fingers trailing lazy patterns down her spine. Stay, he murmured into her hair. I'm not going anywhere. She pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. Outside, music still played and people celebrated. The kingdom stretched into the distance, complex and messy and full of challenges yet to come. But here, wrapped in Heath's arms with that golden thread blazing between them like a promise, Ava had found something better than safety. She'd found home. Are you comfortable? Heath murmured against her hair, his voice warm with amusement. She smiled, remembering that first night, his lap, his audacity. Your bed is surprisingly comfortable, she said, but you already knew that, didn't you? His laugh rumbled through his chest. I had a feeling. I am comfortable, Heath, she said, more seriously now. I'm finally completely home. Can you rate this story from 1 to 10? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people hear these stories.